monsters. Good day to you, partner. I'm Guy, and I can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this forsaken camp.
Hey guys, Wheat Solo here. I'm not in a good mood because I'm having a hard time making this video with any sort of haste. So I'm going to give quick shout outs. Dominus, thank you so much because you've given me some actual useful information that I can help to try to describe how good containers are in Project Diablo 2. As you may have known, I basically had this little quiz about how good interactables are, and I want to try to get to the bottom about what is worth your time to interact with in a map and what isn't. So for instance, if you're playing a build that can do a high density T3 in roughly 6 minutes, I think interacting with locked chests, stashes, and corpses is actually worth your time. Yes, even for a build that fast. And for a Poison Necromancer, who's clearly faster than any other build in the game for T3s, there's a couple of T1 and T2 builds that are close, then I think locked chests would still be worth your time. And yes, I understand how fast they clear maps. So let's do a quick and try to understand why this is worth your time. Even in the old days, people knew containers were a good way to find high runes. Project Diablo 2 is much different than this crap. So for instance, it's like 50% higher chances to find a high rune. Just bear with me, okay? So like 1 in 17,000. And then this would be like 1 in 20,000. But there seems to be something going on with containers, especially when it comes to maps. So we've got these things called Type 1 objects, Type 2 objects, and Type 3 objects, who call different functions every time they're interacted with. Operate function 14, 4, 4, and then this one is function 3. Now these ones really still aren't really worth your time. Now what I do think might be interesting is that in a high enough density group map, like if you had players 8, maybe these would be worth your time because their drop chance would increase to a point large enough to actually matter. Now why would that matter? There is one problem: they can explode, and if they explode, they never drop. And also, they have a high chance to spawn a monster. So yeah, I get that. But still, you have a lot of players doing nothing in players 8 groups. So that would be kind of interesting. Because a single chest TC drop is always going to be 4 rolls. So that's why interacting objects is worth your time. Now, in Project Diablo 2, at Players 5, in maps, it seems like corpses are worth your time, possibly every single Type 3 ordinary object, and especially Type 2 ordinary objects. Okay? What's interesting is that Type 3 ordinary objects basically are somewhere in between Type 4 and Type 2 in drop chance, but it seems like in maps they might drop every time, just like Type 2 ordinary objects. They ignore this initial 75% roll. Remember when I was talking about this being 1 in 20,000? That's affected by the fact that a lot of objects used to have a 25% chance to not get a drop. If you ignore that, it's at least 10% higher, right? So that means this 1 in 17,000 unique and 1 in 20,000 container are suddenly almost actually just as close to each other. So that's why containers are so good, because it's basically like killing a unique. So, tombs, corpses might be better than chests. Now, why is that? That's because chests still clearly can't drop. Now, again, this information might be inaccurate, and if anybody knows or has a better explanation for anything going on here, please let me know, or if I'm kind of confusing things together, because I have a really bad habit with reading comprehensive, selective reading, and probably listexia. A chest still clearly can't drop. It has a 75% chance to make a single chest TC drop of 4 items. But it seems like these objects no longer deal with that issue. They go straight to a 4-item drop. Now, a locked chest always makes 2 chest TC drops, which is 8 items. Now, how often are these going to be locked? Oh, excuse me. Huh. It's kind of interesting, too. Maybe that's another reason why caskets are so good in this game, is because they're calling the wrong casket. I don't know, because we can actually bring up the function table. It's very challenging to follow all this. This is the Mon level. And the Mon level is like specifically for locked chests. Throne Destruction Monster level is 43. You divide that by 2, and then you add it to, what is it? Some value, I forget. And this is a chance a chest is going to be locked. And like I said, a locked chest is worth literally every single player's time. Yes, chests can drop TC-87 equipment, okay? There's this little myth about TC-66. That is not true. So you can drop a Tyrael's Might from opening a chest or a Zod rune. Now, there might be some issue with corrupted zones, and I wanted to touch on this really quickly. Pit and Mausoleum have an M level 85 as of 1.10. But the chests and objects in this area still drop as the old objects, which was TC66, and that's why this myth ever started. Now, that clearly does not exist in maps unless someone has proof that an old tile set is actually affected by this, but I don't believe that is true. So, what are all these functions and why are they important? Because we see all of these items are actually in the game. Functions 14, functions 1, functions 2, functions 3, and functions 4. All the functions called by chest, but it seems like they've all been upped just a little bit, except for possibly barrels. Now, moving on to the end, Ghosts are insane. So what does that mean? It means you should really spend your time in Arcane Sanctuary. Why? Because Arcane Sanctuary also spawns a shit ton of Sparkly Chest. And Sparkly Chest I wanted to also touch on because if you're in a corrupted zone, which is very lucrative early on in the season, or as a fast character like a 200 FCR Sorceress, you really want to make sure you touch that sparkly object in the corrupted zone. So if it's in any subzone, it's basically going to have one. Arcane Sanctuary, a few others, River of Flame, etc. One of the things I wanted to touch on real quickly is look at this. This is player 7 LK single player. The quickest way to find runes is Lower Karas. Now the super chest doesn't exist anymore. They disabled it, so it's definitely not this good. I actually hope they bring the super chest back. Now super chests can spawn in other areas, but they're not consistent. But if opening containers is worth your time, as you're going through the game, you might want to open locked chest because that chest could actually be a super chest because they do actually spawn in other areas. Okay? And again, just because a chest is sparkly doesn't mean it's not a super chest, because not all chests some chests that don't sparkle are a sparkly chest, and some super chests don't sparkle. It's just the stupidest thing in the world. So anyways, open those chests up. They're better than anything else. Like, you know how this list goes, like a mini boss has a 1 in 10,000 chance to drop a high rune? Trust me, a super chest is higher than that. One other interesting thing, G-rushing for forges is apparently worth your time if you're only interested in runes. And then the last thing is this. Where was the list for Countess? Is it over here? Where's Countess? I just wanted to show you how high the chances of... Oh yeah, here we go. That's the chance of Countess in Players 1 to drop an Isrune. That's actually really, really good. So, early on in the season, besides doing Arcane Sanctuary, which is insane for crafting mats, Countess is good to do crafting mats. Anyways, Skelly King out. Chi-Chi.
Come and play with us, Danny. Forever.